Hi everyone, Ashley here. Let's talk through our faith journey and more specifically about the highs and lows of our level of faith and our contentment during the tests and trials that we go through that really strengthen our faith, but we don't feel like that's what's happening at the time. So more recently, I've been reading through Genesis and the story of Abraham and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah are waiting for a child. The situation seems extremely impossible because of their age. You know, they're hoping for this promise, and you know, at first when I heard about this story, I just heard about the promise, and then the promise came to pass. It was a good story, but as I started reading into it over the last few days or weeks, it seems that I've been getting to know this story. It's really about faith. It's about Abraham's journey toward his faith growing and strengthening. And I know we hear about it all of the time, like how our faith can grow in Jesus, and sometimes it's hard to answer how that happens, or it's hard to explain it until you've actually been through it and get the language for it. So Abraham, much like us, went through a lot of moments where he tried to do things himself to help God because they think that he needs help, but he does not need our help. You know, the promise came to pass after many years. And God has a specific timetable for each and every one of us on when he's going to bring us to victory and finally answer that desire that we've been working for and hoping for, the one that he initially placed in our hearts. And those desires are placed in our hearts from God himself, and I believe it's for us to get closer to him in the journey of waiting. A lot of the time we think, you know, I'm going to ask God for this, and because he's such a good God, he's such a just and merciful God and loving, that he's going to give it to us if it's his will. In the process of waiting for that promise, we actually gain an extremely intimate relationship with him, and we start to find that waiting for this promise is not as difficult as we thought it was in the beginning. In the beginning, all we could see was the storm, the hurdles that we were falling. Some of us are still on the floor, but we have hope. And I think that hope is what we have to pay attention to, because it doesn't come, I don't think that hope is our own strength or our own energy. I think that God gives us what we need when we need it. And sometimes, because we're human, we get impatient and we want to force things and make it happen. And it turns out not as a burden, but it doesn't turn out to be as rewarding, because that wasn't the plan God has for us. But because God is all-knowing, he knows that we were going to go that route anyway, and thankfully he already has a plan to fix it, to guide us toward that perfect will that he has set for everyone. So during the lows, I know it's really, really hard. That is the most important time to sit with God. And I used to think, what does sitting with God mean? Like, I'm sitting on my bed and I'm reading and I don't feel anything. And sometimes you're not going to feel anything. I think sitting with God during the time you're at your lowest and you're broken and you can't see past the days. You don't know what's ahead. You just sit there and you bring him that emptiness, that brokenness, that kind of when you come to the end of yourself and you've exhausted all of your own options. Everything you've tried, it didn't work. Even if it was temporary, it didn't work. And that's what he wants. He wants us to just give in to him. Kind of like if you are a parent and your toddler is having a temper tantrum. They want something really bad and they're crying hysterically, and it really doesn't warrant a tantrum, but they're just so tired of not being heard because they don't even know what they don't know what they don't know, because they're so young. They don't have the language for it. They just know they want something really bad, but they can't get it and no one's understanding them. And after a while they stop crying. They kind of put themselves to sleep because they're exhausted from fighting. And I think that's kind of what we do with God after our temper tantrum, right? Our low, when we've exhausted all of our options. And then we're finally like, we go to our parent, right? And God is our Father. And we finally just say like, okay, like, is this what you wanted? And that's not what he wants. But it's necessary for us. It's that heart posture that we bring to him. The one that says, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to do it your way. And I think when we get to that low is when we start to see him working. And sometimes we're not going to see it, but we can feel that hope because he starts to give us, or he starts to give us that kind of revitalized feeling, just a little bit, not enough to spring us back into action, because sitting with him is necessary in our low. We get to feel how he fills us up each moment, through each situation. We start to recognize that my body is extremely tired. You know, I'm wasting away outwardly, but inwardly my strength is being renewed. You know, I have strength to go to work. I have strength to pray. I have strength to open my Bible. I have strength to be with my spouse or my kids. But it's just enough to get us through. And then we have to go back for that refill. You know, like we start to learn the dependency that we need in this race, in this journey, that if we use our own strength, that's when we start coming up with our own ideas on how we can save ourselves. And it just doesn't work. His way is so much better. And once he fills us up, we start to get more strength to read the Bible, to read the Word, however it is that he talks to you, if it's through devotionals or YouTube, whichever way he connects to you. You start to gain some life back into you. And then the revelations start to come. And you start to understand what that low was. I know that some situations and circumstances are really hard for people, and it's hard that God allows them. But if we sit with it and think, wow, I'm not alone. Okay, this happened, but my strength was being renewed. He never left me. And He never promises that we're going to have a perfect life. He actually tells us in this world we're going to have troubles, but to take heart because He's overcome the world. And why wouldn't we want to sit with a God that powerful? And when you're at your high, focus on that revelation He's giving you. Focus on what He taught you through the test that you passed or that you didn't pass. And each time your faith is going to grow stronger and stronger, because you know He's going to be right there with you. Maybe it doesn't mean that everything is going to be perfect all the time, but it does mean that each time you face a different level of test, He's taking you to a new level of faith. And when I say it gets easier, the situation isn't easier, but your reliance and your dependency on God is easier, because you know that He already knew this was going to happen, which means He already has a plan to fix it. And all we have to do is depend on Him. And I'm saying this and it sounds really easy. It's not. But after you come out of the low, you'll see that the high is Him. It's His strength that He's giving you to have the energy to keep going, because you know He's going to be right there. And your faith that grows, you learn so much more about Him and who He is. And then you start to learn who you are in Him. Your identity starts to change about yourself. You're not losing the battles anymore. You're learning from them. You're learning about yourself, and each time a stronghold is breaking. Maybe you struggle with pride or stubbornness or independence or whatever it is. You start to understand, like, that's what I was fighting against. And when those fall off, He replaces them with Himself. And there's no shame there, and it's okay. Because I know a lot of us are afraid of not being in control. But once you see that we were never in control to begin with, you'll start to find a comfort in that. While I encourage you to read the story of Abraham and how his faith grew tremendously while waiting for his promise, and how he even sacrificed his own promise, the one thing he was waiting for, he gave it back to God, because that's how much he loved him. But God, being so faithful, He provided that promise for him, and the promise to many of his generations after that. Be encouraged today, my friends. Allow God to take you and grow you from faith to faith and glory to glory. Take advantage of your lows and sit with God, and take advantage of your highs and sit with God and learn more about them. See you later.